The blizzard, the blizzard, the blizzard. And I ain't talking about Dairy Queen, the blizzard. I ain't talking about Dairy Queen, the blizzard. 2025 and we still alive. Appreciate y'all, man. Welcome. Listen, I know it's January 6th. It's my first video of the year. We had a blizzard. And since I'm editing photos, I did a photo shoot a couple of days ago for a family. And so I'm editing those photos. And I was thinking, processing something, and it hit me. Two things hit me. Two things hit me. The first thing that hit me was, fam, what are you doing? You've been all holidayed up. You haven't even done a video of the new year. And the second thing was what this video was going to be about. So what a crazy time. What a crazy time. You know how people say stuff like, can we leave such and such in 2024? Like I remember it was maybe December 30th. And I saw people on Facebook, some of these people I knew, they would say stuff like this. Anybody else looking forward to 2025? People are like, yeah, I can't wait. And it always strikes me as weird that no matter how long we've been alive, that we still think there's this like placebo of newness, right? Like we still think that because the calendar date changed, that the year is different, that everything's going to be different. And I'm not sure where we get that from, right? I mean, maybe that, well, I think what they call it, right? Well, here's where we get it from. What they call it is the fresh start effect, right? Like there's a sort of a mechanism in our brains that makes us think new year, new me, new this, and we get excited about the reality of newness, right? The placebo of newness. Like, oh, it's a new year, it's going to be a different. But honestly, all the habits, patterns, traumas, all of that, the majority of it get carried over. The same insanity. And usually when people think, I'm looking forward to next year, they're usually thinking that somehow a new year will make like people better and be different, right? It's just the placebo of newness. And then we get to the new year, we get January 1st, boom, New Orleans, right? New year, New Orleans. It just becomes chaos. And it's like, whatever you thought 2024 was that you were looking forward to 2025, nothing changed. I mean, that was terrible trash. We haven't seen something like that since maybe Charlottesville, 2017. Remember that when the white supremacist dudes, was the alt-right, I think they was called? The Jews will not replace us. The Jews, they was marching and that dude just drove through and killed like 2 people, right? White dude. And now you got a dude who's like, kind of looks like black, but kind of like Middle Eastern, that vibe, and he comes in, intelligent dude. So it's like, well, welcome to 2025. Like it's just on one level, I don't think anyone should be like, man, I can't wait till this year is over and the new year begins. Because this isn't the year of Jubilee in the Bible where like, oh, we're finally at this isn't the 7th year. You know how in the Bible, you work for 6 years, people, and then the 7th year, no, you gotta get crops enough for the 6th, for the whole year, because that 7th year was a Sabbath year, right? And then every time 7, 49, the 50th year was the year of Jubilee where all debts were canceled, people were freed, all of this stuff. If you were a slave, you were freed. 50 year, whenever that was, right? The Jews didn't follow it, but that was what God said, right? That's not the world we live in. We don't live in a year where everything resets the next year. So you get to this placebo of newness because of the fresh start effect that makes us think we're going to do everything we said we were going to do. And we realize that, you know what? Here's the reality, right? I know people, good people, man, well-intended people that think like, when I'm telling you, man, when New Year hits, I'm going to fight lust. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to fight that. All of the things, right? I'm going to lose weight. All the stuff we say, right? The reality is this, and I've had to learn the hard way this. It's been humbling. Like many of us, if you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, you're not tripping. You just kind of do what you do, whatever, right? But even if you're not a Christian, you still have a degree of morals where you realize like there's still a right and wrong that you subscribe to, which is not the Bible, right? But for me, so this is what I'm about to say works for whether you believe in or not, whether you're religious or not, whatever it believes. But if you're a believer, this is the deeper reality, right? Here's a deeper reality. as a Christian, we have like a moral ontological view of sin. Like we know God is God is metaphysical, God is holy, sin is evil, and Jesus died on the cross for sin and we must resist, right? That's the moral sort of ontological view, right? We understand that like sin is bad, evil is bad, all these things that God says, right? But then there's the other side of it, the human element of sin that we also struggle with. And the reality is we often resist like things that are not good, bad, even if you're not a believer. You resist them because I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have this drink. I shouldn't go on this app. I shouldn't watch this. We all do that, right? We all have sort of a objective standard of what's right and wrong. But here's a sobering reality, and I've had to learn this the hard way for myself. Here's a sobering reality. Even though we have the moral sort of ontological view, like this is wrong, we shouldn't do this, there's punishment for this, we still desire it. We still desire those things. You desire the pleasure or whatever it is you get from the thing that you know is morally, ontologically wrong, right? And that's why many of us just fall short. The reality is, if we don't deal with things on the desire level, like if I don't learn how to go after my desires, then we're just going to be stuck with morality. Oh, this is just trying to be a good person. It's like, if you're a Christian, Jesus never said like, hey, I came to be a good person. He said, I only do what pleases the Father. Like my will is to do the will of the Father. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to make any real progress, I think if you're a believer, at least if you're a believer, I think anyone for real, but if you're a believer, you have to go after the desire. Like, did your desires change on January 1st? Like mine didn't. I'm trying to create new desires and sow to that, right? So that's a whole different ballgame. But I thought it would be interesting as I'm looking at the landscape of what's happening. It's pretty clear what to expect in 2025. So let me just give you just a couple thoughts. Take them if you want, and you know, whatever it is, you take them for whatever. This isn't prophecy, in the sense like I'm not Cat Williams claiming to have some insight that I'm going to tell you everything is getting exposed. But just a couple things just to consider, right? Especially if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, if you're of the Christian tradition, such as I am. Here's a couple things to expect, all right? The first is this. Faith is going to get tougher this year. If you have faith as a Christian, what to expect in 2025 is faith is going to get tougher. Personal faith, your own, and then trying to tell other people about your faith in hopes that they believe it too. It's going to get tougher, right? It's going to get tougher. Let me tell you why, for two reasons. Let me tell you why first, your faith is going to get tougher this year. And by tougher, I don't mean stronger. I mean, it's going to be harder. You're going to have to fight harder than you have probably previously to have faith. Let me explain why. And this is why I love the Bible. If you're a Christian, you gotta love the Bible. There are times where it's like, you gotta be kidding me. Jesus said this 2,000 years ago. This was what? How long ago? Ridiculous, right? This isn't just a statement of human nature specific. Personally, here's why if you're a believer, and if you're not a Christian, here's why you're going to get more, you're going to hate people more. I'll say that. If you're not a Christian, here's why it's going to be harder for you to love people. And if you are a Christian, here's why it's going to be harder for you to love people. It's the same thing. It's just, we just have different motivations. Here's why. Listen to this verse, these two verses, right? Here's what Jesus said almost 2,000 years ago. Right before he died, he said this. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. All right. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. All right. So listen to this verse. Because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. All right. Here's Jesus's words. Lawlessness will be increased. Now, here's the thing. We know that Ecclesiastes says that there's nothing new under the sun, right? We know that sins are sins. We do have 2 Timothy 3 says that there will be inventors of evil. So yeah, there's different technology. I just watched a video yesterday on this new scam where people are contacting, like say someone knows you have money or whatever, right? They'll contact your carrier, like if you're AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, they'll contact your carrier, say that they're you, they lost their phone, or was stolen, and can the service provider send them an eSIM card to a new phone? And then once they get the SIM, they have all your information. They talked about if you start seeing your phone go SOS and no service, and you can't get in, that means they've sent your SIM card to another phone, and these people are robbing people of tens of thousands of dollars. Inventors of evil, right? That wasn't happening 2,000 years ago. But stealing from people was, right? Robbing people, that's not new. But here what Jesus is saying is, well, lawlessness will be increased, so the love of many will grow cold. Well, we know from 1 Corinthians 10:12, it says, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. So what is he talking about? I think what Jesus means is our exposure to lawlessness will be increased. Our understanding of how much, like when I grew up, I'm a little older, so I grew up when the only evil you saw was local news and then rap videos. No, I'm just kidding. Not that. But it got to that point. But the only evil you saw was like on television, local media, maybe print media. Maybe you had to you didn't see it. But now, because we have such technological advancement, I mean, I can grab my cell phone. I get headlines all the time on my phone of stuff that happened. Such and such, the girl, Aubrey Plaza, her director husband just unalived himself. This was like yesterday I got this notification. Like, we're just finding out about things we would never know about. And it's just all evil. We can watch. Part of the reason why people always blame like the George Floyd stuff on just people being woke. And sure, there was a time where people were wilding, but you know what really lit the George Floyd situation up? You know what it really became what it was? Let me be clear with you. I'm a black man. I'm a black man, right? Nobody was like championing George Floyd. It wasn't about like George Floyd, the person. What blew that whole situation up was technology. That we actually saw most people, unless there was like a police cam or a dash cam, until recently, most people never saw like interactions between law enforcement and people, right? I mean, Rodney King, if you're old enough to remember Rodney King in 1991, someone actually just happened to have an old school camcorder and videotaped these 4 officers beating this dude. But when we saw George Floyd, it was COVID. Everyone was in the house. Videos were going viral like crazy because no one could work. No one was doing anything. And we were all just thinking we're going to die as soon as we sneeze. So we want to have something take away our fear. And so we're just watching all these videos. And what happened was you watched this guy, this officer, with other officers holding his feet, and he was crying out, please, I can't breathe. Whether it was because of drugs or not, it just looked like, man, get off the dude's neck. You had people like, man, let him stand up. He's screaming for his mom, then he dies. What lit everyone up was not George Floyd, it was technology. It was that all of us saw a dude actually die right on video. This was not a movie. This was not a television show. He'll be acting in another TV series later. We watched a dude just die, and a police officer had his knee on his back. Now, that's why he died or not, that's not the point. It was technology. We saw a level of lawlessness that looked to us like lawlessness. And he's still in prison, so the law saw it that way. And it made people get offended, right? You get offended. In this day and age, we have so much exposure to lawlessness, to just evil. We hear about SAing, people getting kidnapped. We hear about Diddy. We hear about, we watched a video of him, putting his hands on Cassie in the elevator. We see all this stuff. We see the people that were our celebrity heroes that we only could read about in small snippets. Now we see how we watch their Instagram pages. Angel Reese, WNBA, who pretended like she was actually competing with Caitlin Clark at one point, or who her fans did, including them too. She just the other day put out on, I saw the headline, she wore some outfit on her Instagram page and people were outraged, and then she closed her Instagram page. We just see it. And the more you see it, the more you get disgusted by it. Listen, the more you see people do things you would never do, the more you become self-righteous towards those types of people, right? It's just human nature to be Luke 18. I'm glad I'm not like them. That's what happens, right? And so Jesus is saying, because lawlessness will be increased, it's increasing, but our awareness of it is increased even more. We're quasi-omnipresent, meaning we can be in multiple places at one time, just sitting at my computer. I can have multiple screens open and looking at all this stuff. Because it will be increased, it says the love of many. This is Jesus talking. Jesus doesn't say nothing. He doesn't do statistics. Jesus doesn't do polls, right? This is God. Jesus said the love of many will grow cold. Because you see more lawlessness, the love of, and that's what happened with all this stuff over the last 10 years. That's what gave the woke movement its, whatever you call the woke movement, Black Lives Matter, whatever you call it, right? It gave them that. That's what made the conservatives be like, well, what about all the babies that are not allowed to live outside the womb? It became the more lawless. And that's what happened is like, it became what they call virtue signaling for who's more lawless. Well, people being killed by police isn't more lawless than people taking their own babies. It just became about law. Who's more lawless? Who's more lawless? And you're supposed to be outraged at more lawless. Your love's supposed to grow colder, and it played out in the political realm. And Jesus says that right here, the love of many will grow cold. So for you and I, if you are a Christian, your faith is going to get tougher because you're seeing so many things, even other believers acting crazy. And it's going to be easy for you to just like not love people. But he said the one who endures to the end will be saved. So what to expect in 2025? If you're a Christian, your faith is going to get tougher to hold on to. You're going to have to press in more because you got to endure to the end, right? You got to endure. Even though you're going to see lawlessness increase, you got to endure. If you're not a Christian, you're going to see people just do crazy stuff, and it's going to be easy to just hate people. You know, it's just going to be easy to just hate people, like monolithically. Like, oh man, I can't, back in the day, it used to be just black people. A black person committed a crime. See, all black people are this, white dude shoots people from a hotel room and he grew up in a tough child. No one says all white men do it. So now it's like all people, you're just going to hate people. It's going to be easy to do it. So loving people is going to be tougher. If you're a Christian, faith is going to get tougher because lawlessness is going to increase. So I'm not saying it's unattainable. I'm just saying it's going to be tougher. Expect that. Believe me. I mean, January, Happy New Year, boom. He kills 10, 15 people. It's crazy. And the more when you watch the footage, that dude was driving which is crazy. It's just crazy. Happy New Year, right? No, it wasn't for those people and their families, right? So faith is going to get tougher. What else to expect in 2025? So I said faith will get tougher, personal, but so will actually talking to people about faith and having faith. Let me tell you why it's going to get tougher. Man, let me tell you something, man. The Gospels are a crazy, the Gospels are, like we always say, the life of Jesus, and that's all true. That's what the Gospels are. But when you really start looking at like what Jesus is saying and interactions, like with the Pharisees and stuff like that, man, he just, you see like, wow, that was the blueprint of what we see happening right now in our society. Let me prove this to you. Watch this. Let me tell you what to expect in 20. Faith is going to get tougher. Personally, which I just talked about, but faith is going to get tougher when you're sharing it. Not unattainable. But let me show you why. Let's look at this interaction, right? In John 8, Jesus is going back and forth with the Pharisees, right? This crazy interaction. I personally love these interactions, but when I look at them the way I'm going to show you right now, they just mean something different to me. It's like, wow, that was a blueprint for like what we see right now. So watch this, all right? Stay with me and don't make me laugh. All right. Listen to this. John 8. Here's what happens, right? So here's what it says. And this is why faith is going to get tougher. Why sharing your faith is going to get tougher in 2025. Right? Here's what Jesus says. All right? He says this. So the Jews who had believed in him, he said this, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, we are offspring of Abraham and have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Right? But keep in mind that it said these are the Jews who had believed in him. He's talking to them. And they asked him that, well, we are offspring of Abraham. Have we never been? How could you say that you will become free? Right? This is what they're saying, right? And then he says this. Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The son remains forever. So if the son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are offspring of Abraham, yet you seek to kill me because my word finds no place in you. I speak of what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father. They answered him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did, right? You are doing the works your father did. They said to him, we were not born of sexual immorality. We have one father, even God. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me. For I came from God and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? Is it because you cannot bear to hear my word? You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires, right? And then it goes down to this. And then it says this. The Jews answered in verse 48, are we not right in saying that you are a Samaritan and have a demon? And Jesus said, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father and you dishonor me. Yet I do not seek my own glory, the one who seeks it. All right. And the Jews said to him, now we know you have a demon. Right. Let me tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying to you. Because some of you don't understand what I'm saying right now. All right. And that's fine. You're not supposed to yet. Let me tell you why faith is going to be tougher in sharing it. What we just read, if you stayed with me, what we just read is a doppelganger of what we see in culture today. What we just read. All right. So let me paint the scenario, right? So here Jesus is going back and forth with Jews. He's telling them, you're dishonoring me. You want to kill me because your father's of the devil. Like you're doing the works your father did. And they said, no, we're children of Abraham. And he says, I know that you believe you're children of Abraham, but if you were, you would do what Abraham did, right? And they're saying, no, but our father's even God. We even have God. Who are you telling? Right? They're going back and forth with Jesus, right? This is with Jesus. They're going back and forth with him. And they're telling them that, no, he has a demon. And he says, no, your father's the devil. And they're going back and forth saying, no, our father's God, right? Let me tell you how that blueprint is happening today. And this is why faith is going to get tougher. So what to expect in 2025? Your personal faith, we got to press in. And sharing your faith is going to be harder. Here's why. This scene tells us why. Today, in the culture today, more people, I would say this. Let me just say this. Today, we are in the most biblically accurate time in connection to the Gospels. And here's what I mean. There are more people today who think they're spiritual. They don't believe in the God of the Bible, but they have spirituality, right? They're spiritual. They don't go to church. They reject this, but they believe in, there's something they believe in, but they're typically spiritual. Like they use that term spiritual, right? They believe that they have the right faith, just like these Jews did arguing with Jesus, right? They're even telling Jesus he's evil, he's wrong, because he has standards and he's following what the Father says, right? In the culture today, more than ever before, are people more confident of their self-righteousness, right? Their self-described spirituality, and they attack those of us who belong to Jesus, or the church. We're the ones that are the devils. We're the ones that have demons. We're the ones that do this. No, they are. Look, in the story, they said that Jesus, Abraham is our father. And they said, if Abraham was your father, you would do the works Abraham did. They said, we're not born of sexual morality. We have our father, even God, right? So they're claiming God is their father. They're claiming a level of relational, spiritual maturity over Jesus because he's teaching that they're wrong and so forth. Today, in our culture today, more people hate the church, accuse the church, and some Christians have earned that, to be honest. There's some, we're realistic around here, right? We're not going to pretend like there aren't some Christians and pastors who have not, and who are not currently so outrageous in their blindness and disobedience to God that Romans 2 is 100% accurate. The name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. So that's 100% true. But they don't even see that. But there's a bunch of people who think they're spiritual. They basically think we have a God as our father, not in the biblical sense, but we're spiritual. What are you talking about? Like, you're the ones that's not spiritual. They're telling Jesus you have a demon. And they're probably possessed by demons themselves, telling Jesus he has a demon, right? So you see in this John 8 scene, a blueprint, a doppelganger of what we see in the culture. People think they're spiritual. People think they're good, and they defend their goodness when you challenge it. Jesus could not win these people because they could not see that they're not good. He had to tell them, your father, he had to be direct and said, no, your father's the devil, right? Because they thought, no, we're spiritual, we're good. Like, you're the one that's tripping. Today, more than I've ever seen in my life more people think I'm good. Like, I don't go to church. I don't need to go to church. I don't need to like believe in Jesus, but I'm spiritual. Like, I have a relationship. Like, I'm good. Like, I meditate. I do these things. I'm good. It is the blueprint. It's the language may be different, but the identical things, the thought process is the same from John 8. They're telling God that he's the devil in John 8. They're telling Jesus, you're the problem, not us. You're the one that's wilding right now. And Jesus says, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm actually speaking what the Father tells me to speak. This is what's happening in our culture. It's insane. You know, you ever see those YouTube videos where it's like, I just did a video on this. I did a video. One of my last 2 videos I did from last year was this back and forth between former Christian women versus current Christian women going back and forth. And the 3 former Christian women, one of them said she was an ordained minister still. I don't know what church she goes to. I hope the members of her church watched that video and was like, wait a minute, she doesn't believe nothing that we believe, right? I don't know what they believe, but they were just going after Christianity. But the one girl said, I'm spiritual. I feel like, there's energies and I connect and it's just like, and it's all satanic, right? It's straight 2 Corinthians 11. But the reality is these people, just like Jesus says here, look, they're calling him a demon. He said, aren't we right in saying you have a demon? These people think I'm good. Like, listen to this language right here. Watch this. This is what they say. They said this. They look at this. They answered in verse 39, Abraham is our father. Jesus said that Abraham, if you were Abraham's children, you'd be doing the works Abraham did, right? But now you seek to kill me. Then they say to him, we were not born of sexuality. We have one father, even God. Make sure you understand what's happening right there. They're arguing with God, saying that they belong to God and saying that he's of the devil. They are so confident that they are spiritual, that they're good, that they can't hear the message of the gospel. They can't hear it. So what to expect in 2025? Faith is going to get tougher, but it's not just faith. Personally, like the Matthew 24, you're going to see more lawlessness is going to be increased. I mean, we start the year off with the level of, let's be clear, right? You got to give America this credit. Let's give our country some credit, right? For a country that is like, we're the most violent country in the world, right? Keep in mind, we have the highest number of serial killers. We have the most people in incarceration and so forth, right? America is the most violent nation in the world. You may not think so because we are. But even in that, God is kind and still restrains us, right? Now, there's some cities that are more violent. Keep in mind, if you type in the most dangerous cities in the world, 17 of the 25 are going to be in Mexico somewhere. I'm not even being funny. That's real. I just did it not too long ago. It's a couple of them will be American, like Baltimore is in there. I think Indianapolis or I think Chicago was in there at one point. New Orleans was in there at one point. You're going to have a couple different cities in America, but largely they're going to be in like Mexico and 1 or 2 other countries, right? But the reality is, like, we're a very violent nation, right? Violent nation. And so you see all this violence just happening all the time, right? And violent, but in the reality is, as violent as we were, as many people that hate us and want to destroy our country, America, you got to give our country credit. We've held it down. Like, we've held it down to not have these major things happening. Now, I think things are coming this year, and that's not what this video is going to be about. But I think things are coming for sure, because you can't stop everything. But let's just give our country some credit. Like, whether we thought the Patriot Act was overstepping its boundaries or not, we haven't had another major catastrophe in quite some time. Let's just be clear, right? Let's just keep it 1,000. People want to kill us, destroy us, and they got people in the country that want to do it. We haven't had it. So when you come to January 1st and you see this dude who says he's representing ISIS, attacks these people and kills 10 to 15 people, it becomes like one of the largest attacks in a while because we as a country have held it down. Hats off to we're the most violent, but we're also the most hated. And we've held it down in many ways but we're still very violent. And you're going to see more of that happening, I think, in 2025. You're going to see more people who are going to be resistant to the gospel because, it's funny, man. Most times we think people don't believe in Jesus because they just defiant, like they know the truth and they're not. And we get that Romans 1 talks about they're suppressing the truth. I don't think Romans 1, I think Romans 1 was very contextualized, right? And I think it's making a broader point about truth. I don't think Romans 1 is teaching, oh, I know Jesus died on the cross for my sin. However, no, I think people are not going to believe. Faith is going to be tougher, not because people are rejecting Jesus, but because they already think they're spiritual. So in that sense, they are rejecting Jesus, but I'm not saying it. I think sometimes as believers, we think people are just like, we know the truth, but we're middle finger to you. And we're just so, and it's like, nah, I think a lot of people, they're just, I mean, 2 Timothy 2:26, the devil is taking them captive to do his will. Like they genuinely don't want to believe in Jesus, not because, it's not even because, oh, pastors be doing stuff. Man, there's no religion. Like there's nothing. I've said this to y'all before, right? When people say stuff like, well, how could a good God allow this tragedy to happen, right? That's why I don't believe in your God, because you, and you're like, well, what do you believe in? Well, I believe in science, or I believe in the universe, or I believe in this religion. And say, okay, so how did that religion stop any of the things that you're mad at my God for not doing, right? So what, the same evil that you, whatever you believe in, the same evil exists, the same tragedies exist, the same stuff exists, right? So what are you mad at my God for when what did you believe in didn't stop any of it either, right? It's just ridiculous reasoning on some level, right? But I get it. I understand it. This is where it is, right? People are going to, faith is going to get tougher because people think like, I'm already spiritual, like I'm good. I don't need to believe in your God. It's not even personal against Christianity. I just think people think, no, I'm good. Like I'm spiritual. Like I pray. I'm Abraham's my father, you know. We have even one father, but God, it's the same argument from John 8. The culture today is a doppelganger of John 8. He's just arguing back and forth with truth. Like, I don't need to believe it because I'm good. I think that's why faith is going to get tougher. Today, we are in the most biblically accurate time in connection to the Gospels. The same thing, like, nah. That's what's going to happen. So again, there's going to be a lot of things that you could make a ton of videos of what to expect. I wanted to keep it short today and just kind of to this point, because I think if you're a believer, your faith's going to get tougher personally because you're going to see more lawlessness. If you're not a believer, then your love for people is going to decrease because you're going to see people just do wild stuff. And it's just like, what in the world is happening? What in the world? And you're just going to just judge people and hate them. And as believers, we have to remember 24:13, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. Listen, this is a separate video. I've said this before, but listen. In modern Christianity, in modern America, religion, this is not even just conducive to Christianity. It's everywhere, but Christianity in particular. There is this belief that if I've made a profession of faith in Jesus, or if I'm spiritual, if I meditate, if I do these things, there is some semblance that it says, hey, I'm good. There are a lot of Christians who have been taught that you said a sinner's prayer, which is not biblical at all. But that's, we talked about that replaced baptism. I went through that in a couple videos ago, that baptism was to repent and be baptized. There's no such thing as a sinner's prayer. The sinner's prayer replaced baptism in the same way that the Mishnah replaced what God said you can and can't do on the Sabbath, right? There's always these oral traditions of man. But what we're seeing right now is this rise of a sense. No matter what, people think if I'm a Christian, hey, I made a profession of faith, I said this in this prayer, but Jesus says the one who endures to the end will be saved. You have to remember there's saved and then being saved. Those are both, they concurrent. It's not, okay, yeah, Romans 10:9 and 10 is true. If you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, then you're saved. But then you have to endure to the end to be saved. You can't take one verse and say, well, you got to look at all the verses on the systematic theology of salvation and look at what's saved. And they're saved and being saved, right? When you make a profession of faith, you've walked into the door of Christianity, of faith. Spiritual warfare, all of it. Welcome to the team. But now you got to go to practice. Now you got to run the plays. Now you got to play defense. Now you got to score. You're on a team when you make a profession of faith, but you're not. You got to stay in. You got to practice. You got to run drills. You got to endure to the end, right? And so this is what happens. So you're going to see a lot of people who profess to be Christians who fall away because they think I'm not loving these people, I'm not forgiving these people, I'm not doing none of that. And they've made a profession of faith. And that to them is Christianity. And it's the same satanic scheme that non-Christians use. Like, hey, I'm spiritual. I meditate. I read. I'm listening to this J. Cole podcast where he's detailing sort of his career, and he talks about meditation and how he meditates every day and all of that. And J. Cole, when you hear him talk, he thinks like, yeah, man, and I'm not saying it didn't change him. I'm sure it helped him out. I think there's a lot of non-Christian things that help non-Christians out. But in the end, he's just deceived. He's deceived like everyone else. There are Christians who think I'm a believer because I made a profession of faith, and that was it. But they don't obey. They don't persevere. Jesus said, if you love me, obey my commandments. That's crazy. Out of all the things that Jesus could have said to prove you love him, he said, obey me. So obedience is his love language. But people don't want to hear that. So anyway, oh boy, what to expect in 2025. I think our faith is going to be tested because we're just going to see evil. We have to remember we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but against the principalities. Like, God loves these people, even though they don't love him. And then I think it's going to be harder to share our faith because people just think, hey, I'm spiritual, I'm good. It's the same argument in John 8. But what do I know? What do I know? What do I know? I know that it's snowing and my sons are outside holding it down. I got 3 teenage boys, and I couldn't wait for this day because there was a time when they were 3 toddlers and it would snow like this, and I had to go out there for hours while they all look out the window at Poppy and got hot cocoa, and I'm out there mad, forgetting that children are a gift from the Lord and that you honor your... I'm mad because I'm out in the... But now that I'm older and my kids are teenagers, let it snow. When I was a kid, I loved the snow because we had epic snowball. We had snowball fights that were so epic that people lost friendships. People stopped being friends. We had serious snowball fights when I was a kid. I loved it for that reason. Now I love it because I got boys that can shovel the driveway. As I speak right now, my son, which one is that? That's my youngest son. He's leaning on the shovel, just tired. And I've been there. I get it. And I love it because I did it for a long time. And I'm the one that provides for them boys. Happy Father's Day. This is, instead of all them little cars and all the stuff that they give you on Father's Day that may take them 5 minutes to do, this is the Father's Day gift that I want. Shovel that driveway, boy. Clean off Poppy's car. That's how we do it, baby. That's how we do it. Yeah, man. Listen, I got a couple more things to say, but we ain't going to say them in this video. So, I appreciate y'all watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. We getting back. It's 2025. We still alive. And the Lord is good. Let me see. Should I check what's going on in here? Let me check. I think I'm going to just end this one today. But I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. I will see y'all. What time is it? 2:30? I might see y'all later on tonight. If not tomorrow. All right. Grace and peace.